Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Thursday, February 11th, 2016. I'm Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. It's Thursday, so that means recruiting. However, Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports, has decided to take this time to be lazy and take a vacation. So what do you do in that case? You go to the man who never takes a vacation, the dean himself, Bill Kurelic. Bill, how are you this fine morning?
Very well, Dan, and ready to go.
Up and at 'em and ready to go. We are into a new cycle. 2017 is here. 2016 has come and gone. And I will say, we got off to a rocking start. I did not really even know Haskell Garrett was really on Ohio State's radar. Have to say I was very psyched that they signed a player from Bishop Gorman, got a commitment from a guy from Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. Any pipeline we can establish with another one of the top talent-producing schools in the country is great. Bill, I got the sense even you were taken a little aback by the Haskell Garrett commitment.
Yeah, I was surprised in the timing of it. Not that he would necessarily be a Buckeye, but that he would be a Buckeye without having visited Ohio State. It doesn't happen often. Last one I can remember would be Marcus Ball, that had committed to Ohio State, having never made a visit there, and so the timing of it was what surprised me. You know, he got an offer from Ohio State not that long ago, but it was an offer that got his attention right away. In fact, when he got that offer, I talked to his coach, who said that he could see him ending up at Ohio State. That Ohio State was one of his. At that time, his coach told me that Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and maybe USC were Haskell's top choices, and lo and behold, it didn't take him that long to commit to Ohio State. And he will, of course, visit Ohio State. I think that'll just really solidify his commitment when he makes his visit.
Yeah, that's a lot of the discussion, and kind of the overarching vibe of the whole class is going to be space and who can fit. So the strength of each commitment is always brought into question now, and you've covered that. He hasn't visited. He's from the West Coast. How confident should people be that he'll eventually put on a jersey at Ohio State?
Well, I think, it's almost a year until the next National Signing Day, of course, and that is a long time. But, I would put my confidence meter fairly high. Not as high maybe as somebody that was born and raised here in Columbus. But when you look at it, Haskell Garrett is not a West Coast guy. That's not what he is. He was born in Connecticut. He has lived in Hawaii. He's lived in Las Vegas. So it's not like he's been born and raised in California, for instance. So he thinks of himself more as an Eastern guy, as a matter of fact. He told me that when I spoke to him shortly after he committed to Ohio State. So I just think that if you're that strong on Ohio State, having never visited there, once he visits there, they're going to wow him. There's no question in my mind. This is a big commitment. I think he's going to be impressed. He hasn't even met a number of the coaches yet. And once he does that, I think it's going to do nothing but strengthen his commitment. Now, will he continue to get recruited? Absolutely. He's a great prospect, and schools are going to continue to come after him. So you do worry about that a little bit. But, again, I think as his coach put it to me as well, he seems to be a pretty solid commitment. You never know for sure till they sign. But I like Ohio State's chances of keeping him in the class.
What do you think of him as a player?
I think he's a fantastic player. The only, I guess to say the little bit of a question mark is that he's not 6'5". You like your defensive lineman to be a little taller, and he's not that. He's pushing 6'3", but that's big enough if you're a great player, and he's a great player. Whether it be, the thing that I really like about him is that he is equally effective, whether it be stopping the run or rushing the passer. He's not one of these guys that is a one-trick pony, so to speak. He's very effective at both, and I really, really like that about him.
He's the second defensive lineman, defensive tackle to commit to the class with Jerron Cage out of Cincinnati. Much ado about the last class. Whether it was one of the best classes in Ohio State history, we'll see. But the one kind of glaring issue was probably the lack of a pure big defensive tackle. If Ohio State finished the class of 2017 with Haskell Garrett and Jerron Cage, would that be a successful defensive tackle haul in your opinion?
Oh, no question. Haskell Garrett is the number 4 defensive tackle in the country. Jerron Cage is the top defensive tackle in Ohio. He's the number 14 defensive tackle in the country, and I could see that ranking rise a little bit between now and, say, next January. So, it's not out of the question that Ohio State, when all is said and done, come National Signing Day of 2017, it's not out of the question that they could have 2 of the top 10 defensive tackles in the country in this class. So, yeah, what neither of them is the 320-pound one technique. But I will certainly, if I were an Ohio State fan, take those 2, call it a great defensive tackle recruiting class.
Flipping to the other side of the ball and highly rated players, the 5 stars were updated yesterday for 24/7 Sports, not surprisingly. And a guy we're going to talk about as much as we can here just because we can. Josh Myers comes back in as the number 1 offensive lineman in the class, number 3 player in the class. Bill, you shared this, but just with everybody else, kind of put in perspective not where he ranks as an offensive lineman in this class, but you've been doing this for more than a few years. Where would you rank him in terms of offensive lineman recruits at this stage of their career?
Well, again, it's over a long period of time. The guys that I would put at the top of my list for the state of Ohio would be probably in this order, actually, right now as they come out of high school. I'd put Orlando Pace at the top. It's hard to put anybody above him. Simply because he has done it at every level. But, he would be the best that I have seen coming out of the state of Ohio when you go and talk about offensive tackles. I'd put Josh Myers right behind him, and then Corey Stringer after those 2. So when you talk about almost 30 years and saying that Josh Myers is in the top 3 and someone I'd rate at number 2 that I've seen, that's about as good as you're going to. He's just a tremendous prospect, and also I might add just a tremendous young man. He really is the complete package.
And you've probably heard that before if you listen to the Bucknuts Morning 5 or listen to the Bucknuts 90 with Bill's on there. But I really want people to get a sense of just where he fits into the mix. He committed so early that sometimes guys who do that, we don't pay proper attention to them. And just to gain some perspective, I think we all know what Orlando Pace and Corey Stringer have done. Obviously, Stringer's NFL career was tragically cut short when he passed away at a practice. But Orlando Pace was just inducted into the Hall of Fame, and you're talking about legendary types. So if you're going to start a class, and you can start it with a guy who's that highly regarded, it's certainly a great start, especially in light of the fact of what Urban has done over the past few years. But every class, and this is one thing I wanted to hit on with Bill here, every class got to talk about quarterback recruiting. And this one's going to be interesting. They've had Danny Clark committed for some time. I'm getting the sense lately, though, that it's not a 100% chance he's going to end up in the class. I don't think through any fault of his own. Just maybe a chance he doesn't end up in there. He's also big enough that some people think he may turn into a tight end. Here's my question, not whether or not Danny Clark will be in the class, but if he's not in the class, do you see them going after another quarterback and sticking to the idea that you have to have a quarterback in every class?
Well, I think they would. I mean, they've kicked the tires a little bit, contacting some other quarterbacks for 2017. But if Danny Clark for some reason, for any reason whatsoever, wasn't in this class, I think they would go after a quarterback in the class. That's the way they. And it's not really unusual that even if they are done recruiting quarterbacks, that they would continue to stay in contact with some, because this staff prepares for all eventualities. Even though Kareem Walker was to be the only running back in the class last year, it didn't happen. Obviously he continued to take visits, and the staff stayed in touch with some different running backs and ended up getting a different one. So, they're not going to shut down all contacts with all prospects at a position just because they have someone else. They all know that in this game, nothing is a done deal until you get them signed and all that.
You certainly know that, considering the fact Kareem Walker and Tristan Wallace turned into Antonio Williams and Dwayne Haskins. And I think we're better for it in the class of 2016. We appreciate Bill stopping by, filling in for Steve Wiltfong, who was off sunning himself somewhere. We took a general approach to the class of 2017, kind of a top-down look. There's no place you want to be better than Bucknuts if you want to be on top of recruiting, and Bill's there for you. Have a great one, Bucknutters.